Order, Madam Speaker.
May we take this moment for a silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Greetings, honorable members. It is with profound sadness that we formally note the passing away of Mr. Thulani Ntuli, a nephew to Honorable MEC BM Ntuli, who passed away yesterday after a short illness. You will be updated on the funeral arrangements, but may we have the Ntuli family in our thoughts and prayers. Honorable members, we have received and processed the following apologies. The Honorable Deputy Speaker, Mr. M. Indobe, who is attending to pension fund responsibilities. Honorable M. Bintuli, MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison, who will leave early due to a government engagement in Ladysmith. Honorable Mr. S.M. Sonjika, who is unwell, and we wish him a speedy recovery. The following honorable members who are on party commitment: Honorable Mr. S.E. Manele of the ACDP, Honorable Mr. M.E. Pakati of the ATM, Honorable Mr. C.J. Papas of the DA, Honorable A.V. Twala of the EFF, M.W. Twala of the EFF, Honorable A.V. Koza of the EFF, Mtetwa S.H. of the EFF, Serja LG of the EFF, Herix PP of the EFF, Mchali GF of the EFF, Mpaipeli NL of the EFF, Dlamini NL. All of them are attending to party commitments. The Honorable MEC for Health, Mrs. Melane Zulu, will have to be released early due to a government commitment. Honorable members, those were the apologies that we had. Now we're going to tablings. Are there any tablings except the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature Budget Performance in-year monitoring report for the month of January 2020, KZN Legislature 2019-2020 Quarter 3 Budget Performance Report, KZN Legislature 2019-20 Year-to-date Quarter 3 Budget Performance Report. Are there any other tablings? The Honorable Chairperson of Finance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We are tabling the report of the Finance Portfolio Committee on the second adjustments 2019-2020. Thank you.
Thank you, MEC Finance.
Thank you, Speaker. I table the Socio-Economic Review and Outlook 2020-21, the estimates of capital expenditure 2021, and the estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure 2020-21. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we'll come to announcements or reports by the Premier.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thought you have expropriated this item to yourself. Thanks, Speaker. Honorable Speaker and members of this august House, would like to make the following few reports. The first is that yesterday the province, working with national government, confirmed that there is an incident of the coronavirus in KwaZulu-Natal, wherein one of the citizens was confirmed after conducting some tests. We have since, as government, interacted with the national government and would like to assure the people that this is not the outbreak in KwaZulu-Natal and in the country. We have been in touch through appropriate or proper structures with families, and the one who have been tested positive he has been arranged to be secluded and is getting attention. We've also noted that the matter has spread to schools. A school that is affected, the kids have been for today, all activities were adjourned. And therefore, we will want to allay these fears that are all over, especially in the social media. Further, to address this, MEC Zulu, today with Minister Mkhize, will meet with principals of schools around Umgungundlovu district. Honorable Speaker, the second announcement is that on Sunday, the 8th of May, our country on Sunday will mark the International Women's Day. This day is observed globally, and it marks the celebration of women in various fields of human endeavor. The KwaZulu-Natal will also join this celebration with a view of mobilizing our society for gender parity and intensification of the fight against any form of any form of violence directed to women. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Premier, and sincere apologies for almost expropriation. We now on item number 6, formal motions and notices by the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. There are no formal motions and notices. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Now we come to notices of bills or motions. Thank you, honorable members. You may be seated. We will start with Honorable Simelane Zulu N of the ANC.
Thank you very much, Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. That this House notes the statement made by the Minister of Health, Dr. Z.L. Mkhize, yesterday, confirming that a 38-year-old male has been confirmed positive for the COVID-19, which is coronavirus, on the 5th March 2020, after he returned from a trip in Italy. The patient has been admitted to Grace Hospital in Pietermaritzburg, which is one of our isolation hospitals for isolation. The Emergency Operating Center has identified the contacts by interviewing the patient and the attending doctor. The tracer team in the province, which has epidemiologists and clinicians from the province, is on the ground as we speak as of last night, following on all the contacts, and is going to be isolating some of them this morning. We call on the public to remain calm and apply safe hygienic practices and avoid surface contacts. At the moment, there is no need for panic. The matter is under control. I shall so move, Chair.
Honorable Sibidla Sapeta NN of the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the People's Liberation Movement, the African National Congress, I shall move as follows. To congratulate the eThekwini municipality for being chosen as the host city for the 2020 World Maritime Parallel Session under the theme Sustainable Shipping for Sustainable Planet. The event will be attended by hundreds of international maritime organization officials, United Nations specialized agencies, various intergovernmental organizations, as well as non-governmental organizations from across the globe. The event, the event is held to discuss strategies to promote global partnerships as well as regional cooperation on maritime issues. The African National Congress believes that this event will position Durban and KwaZulu-Natal on the global map as a maritime destination. That this event will also re-energize Operation Phakisa and assist in unlocking the full potential of our oceans economy. Therefore, we resolve to encourage people of the province and women in particular to take advantage of this event by showcasing their works and call upon ETIA to set aside resources for empowerment of women in maritime. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The next member is Honorable Sithole Muloi BN of the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. We note the work that has been done by our government in ensuring that the people that want to embark on planting and also putting themselves in the commercial side of the cannabis, as the Premier was outlining in his SOPA. We also applaud the stride made by our government in investigating the cannabis to facilitate economic growth and the livelihood. As the Premier, Honorable Zegalala, reported in this House during SOPA, a cannabis unit has been established in the Moses Kotane Institute to assist emerging cultivators and entrepreneurs with licensing and funding. This House resolved that this gesture and this step that has been taken by our Honorable Premier be applauded and also be supported to ensure that there is food security, and also people of KwaZulu-Natal do work and ensure that the economy is grown through agricultural sector. Thank you.
Next member is Honorable Governor P of the IFP.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move as follows. At the next sitting of this House noting, 1, the first case of the coronavirus has officially been reported in KwaZulu-Natal. 2, our ports of entry are being monitored. 3, the borders of our province that link KwaZulu-Natal with 3 countries, namely Swaziland, Lesotho, and Mozambique. 4, that these borders are porous and unprotected. This House calls for the deployment of the National Defense Force to prevent people from entering our province undetected. I shall so move.
The next member is Honorable Kaula MP of the IFP.
Ngiyathokoza Mkhaya. On behalf of Inkatha Freedom Party, at the next sitting of the House, I shall move as follows. That the House noting the Gini Index ranking 159 countries by World Bank, showing that South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. Out of 49 countries in Africa, South Africa tops the list of inequality with 0.63, followed by Namibia with 0.59, Zambia at 0.57. 2/3 of South Africans live in poverty, with more than half of South Africans living below the poverty line. Countries with the highest Gini coefficient are South Africa, Lesotho, Haiti, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Comoros, to mention but a few. The House resolves that the 2020-21 budget proposed by the Honorable MEC for Finance must talk to these realities and address these anomalies. I so move.
The next member is Honorable Kika I of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I give notice that at the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. 1, noting the Premier's announcements. 2, overcrowding in hundreds of schools with up to 105 learners in some classes, pit latrines in some 1,300 schools, lack of water and soaps as basics is a toxic brew for the spread of virulent and contagious organisms. 3, with the opportunity to disseminate proper information about limiting the spread of disease to over 2.5 million learners using pamphlets, for example, millions of homes can be reached, lives saved, and disease limited. 4, no contingency plans to limit the spread of COVID-19 or other conditions have been announced by Education. This House resolves to call upon the MEC for Education to table an executive statement on contingency measures around COVID-19 in schools. So shall I move.
The next member is Honorable Esther Kur Rajbansi of the NF.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I shall move on the next sitting day as follows. Noting that there is 1 confirmed case of coronavirus in Hilton, notwithstanding the Honourable Premier's and Health MEC's statement, there is public panic regarding the spread, as well as healthcare-associated infections in our institutions. This Honourable House calls for a debate of public importance by the Honourable MEC of Health to allay public and institutional fears and myths with facts, focusing on the cost impact of this infection and all possible interventions in terms of surveillance and reporting systems, precautions, and basic infection control systems. Moved by Mrs. Rajbansi.
The next member is Honorable Mlotshwa VR of the NFP.
Mhlonishwa somlomo, ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo ngiyophakamisa kanje. Lendlu iyakunaka ukushuba komoya lapha eMnambithi. Sekuyimpamba nkwici lokhu okuloku kuqhubeka ukuvalwa kwedolobha. Kuncishe abantu basothukela ilungelo labo lokuyozithengela ngokukhululeka ukuvakashela abathandwe babo ezibhedlela abaya emsebenzini ngokukhululeka ukuvalwa kwamabhizinisi okumele akhuphule umnotho waKwaZulu-Natal okubi kunako konke ukuvalwa kwamanzi abantu bangatholi amanzi ngakho le ndlu inquma kanje ukuba umhlonishwa uSipho Hlomuka naye wavalelwa amanzi angenelele aphenye izinsolo zenkohlakalo ezithinta imeya yalo yamkhandlu waseMnambithi ukuba MEC ubheka intuli aqinisa uphenyo lwakhe ezinsolweni zokuthinteka kwemeya exoveni imboni yamatekisi ngokufaka ngenkani amatekisi akhe adala ekubulaweni kwabantu basothukela hlonishwa somlomo ngiyophakamisa.
The next member is Honorable Cele JN of the ANC.
Ngibonge somlomo. Egameni lika Khongolose ngokuhlala okulandelayo ngiyophakamisa kanje. Udaba lwase Bergville endaweni yasemoyeni lokuhlukunyezwa kwabantombazanyana asemancane ngeqholo lokuthi ayathwalwa ayoganiswa. Elandwa esikoleni ngesihluku ashawe aqhutshwe kuthi uyakavume ukuyogana. Luyinto embi ehlukumeza ngisho abazali, ngisho inkosi yendawo imbala. Lendlu inquma kanje. Isiteshi samaphoyisa saseKranskop sibukeka sehluleka ukwenza lo msebenzi wokubopha lezi zigilamkhuba. Ungqongqoshe wamaphoyisa esifundazweni kunye nekomiti la kwa Quality of Life batheleke esiteshini samaphoyisa aseKranskop ukuze bathole mangaka amacala alolu hlobo asebewaphenya ngempumelelo. Umnyango usungule inombolo esheshayo yamahala ukuze izingane zikwazi ukubika lolu hlobo lwalamacala. Bese ukuthi uhulumeni idepartment iyenze iawareness yokuthi iqwashise abazali kunye nomphakathi endaweni ngiyophakamisa.
The next member is Honorable Fraser MC of the ANC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. This House notes the amount of challenges that the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, in particular with regards to AG's findings in the past years, notes that in the 6th administration under the stewardship of MEC Bongisithole Moloi, working with the newly appointed HOD, Mr. Sibande, indicates a green light. This House also notes that the department has since strengthened its internal control measures and established internal audit unit and functional risk management to find mechanisms to improve the systems. This House therefore resolves to welcome the quick move by MEC Moloi to fill in the strategic vacancies at a senior management level, which is indicative that the MEC is committed to turn things around in the department. I shall so move.
The next member is Honorable Zungu, MPP of the ANC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Noting that the MEC for Department of Agriculture and Rural Development within the short period of time has managed to devise a turnaround plan on improving organizational operations under challenging circumstances. The appointment of Mrs. Sibande, who is the HOD, to close the vacuum that ever existed over the past years was very progressive indeed. The House therefore notes or applauds the departmental work in progress so far and welcomes the appointment of the HOD and CFO and the impact they have made in supporting the MEC to turn things around. The House also applauds the move by the department to employ the consequential management to those implicated for wrongdoings, and that the Treasury be invited to engage on an investigation on the subjects. I shall so move, Chairperson.
The next member is Honorable Kulu TV of the ANC.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the People's Movement, ANC, I shall move as follows. That this House debates the ANC, debates the ANC pledge to change the Constitution. Speaker, bang phazamisa labantu.
Kahle kahle nguwe uyaziphazamisa, Honorable Member.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the People's Movement, ANC, I shall move as follows. That this House debates the ANC pledge to change the Constitution to accelerate the expropriation of land without compensation, to address the racially skewed patterns of the land ownership dating back from apartheid and colonial rule. This will expose the DA opposition to the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution, which is aimed at nothing but to protect the interest of the white privileged minority and to preserve the legacy of apartheid and colonialism by denying the majority of people of this country their rights to land ownership. So shall I move, Speaker. Thank you.
The next speaker is Honorable Mazibuko MJ of the IFP.
Mhlonishwa somlomo ngokuhlala kwalenze okulandelayo ngiyaphakamisa kanje lendlu yakunaka ukuthi ngomhla ka-21 kuMashi kulonyaka i-IFP zobe igubha ukuqeda iminyaka engama-45 kusukela yaphuma esibelethweni seNingizimu Afrika iyinkatha yenkululeko yesizwe. Njengoba umlando wazi, i-IFP ngumphumela wokuyikhandla nomzabalazo womholi umntwana kwaphinda angene oyindodana yena uqobo engumphumela womzabalazo wawuqhutshwa ngamakhosi ase-Afrika nezimpi zawo kanye nabaholi bomzabalazo abanjengodokotela uPixley Seme, inkosi uLthulu, Saroto Kaisaka Seme, inkosi AJ Luthuli, uMasabalala Yengwa, uJordan Wakangubane, uSelphi Msimanga nabanye abaningi. Lendlu ke inquma ukwethulela isigqoko umntwana uma ngosuthi ubuthelezi ngokwakhe inqanawe eyinqaba yokukhoselisa abampofu nabakhishwa inyumbazana. Okwesibili ukunxusa umdala ukuba ayisekele njalo inkatha nomntwana ngoba basadingeka kule Ningizimu Afrika esehlathini. Mhlonishwa somlomo ngiyawuphakamisa kanje.
The next member is Honorable Moodley S of the IFP.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the next sitting day of this House, I shall move as follows. That learner transport be seen as a key priority. The safety of our learners is paramount and we can no longer condone overloading unroadworthy vehicles and other violations that places our children's lives at risk. This House resolves that the RTI needs to be vigilant and set up efforts to ensure that those who provide transportation to our learners comply with the requirements and not merely interest themselves in the monetary gain. Those drivers who place our children in danger must be severely dealt with and not be allowed to continue to transport our children. Harsher measures will curb the alarming rates of accidents. So shall I move.
The next member is Honorable Mthethwa TP of the IFP.
Mhlonishwa somlomo ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo ngiyakuphakamisa kanje. Lendlu iyabunaka ubudushu ububhaka nokuphambana kwembono kwamelungu eqembu elibusayo kumasipala waseMkhanyakude. Inkohlakalo inuka phukulo wamasipala lapho uCFO no MM, uSpeaker no Mayor babhekene ngeziqu zamehlo okuze kwadalela ukuba ibudget review ingaphasi ngenxa yokuthi uMayor ubengesabona nangokhalo. Lendlu iphakamisa ukuthi ungqongqoshe alubukele eduze loludaba ngoba lukhinyabeza intuthuko yomphakathi. Mhlonishwa Somlomo yawuphakamisa.
The next member is Honorable Nkwanyana NJ of the IFP.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the IFP, I shall move on the next sitting of this House that this House notes that a 30-year-old male who traveled to Italy with his wife has tested positive for coronavirus. This House resolves, 1, to call on the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Health to put lives of people first and launch an urgent campaign aimed at educating all citizens, especially those in rural and township communities, about the deadly coronavirus. 2, that the healthcare workers should be well trained with early detection and preventative measures. 3, that measures to track and identify this virus should easily accessible to people in rural and townships areas. I shall so move.
The next member is Honorable Verana R. Doctor of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that I move as follows at the next sitting, noting the Premier's announcement that the first case of coronavirus has been reported in KwaZulu-Natal, in Hilton. It was always a matter of when and not if. 2, that there is some rising panic and fear within community as a result of misinformation, primarily via social media. That this House hereby resolve that we call for a debate of provincial importance where all the facts can be presented and the department's plans debated. We require transparency to fight any misinformation. There must be the promised mass information drive by the Department of Health via leaflets, social media, newspapers, and community radio. And 3, and most importantly, that the MEC will find an ally in the Democratic Alliance if she takes us into her confidence. The health of all KwaZulu-Natal residents is paramount. I so move.
The next member is Honorable Majola NR of the ANC.
Thank you, Somlo. Honorable Speaker, in the next sitting of this House, as ANC, I shall move as follows. 1, this House notes the caliber ANC government has in National Department of Health, where the compliance level on Health Act 61 of 2003 that regulates management of infectious notifiable disease is taken serious through Honorable Dr. Zwelini Mkhize, the Minister of Health. 2, his constant communication with public domain in explaining about coronavirus, its signs and symptoms, as well as prognosis thereof. 3, proactiveness in prevention measures for each and every case identified. 4, briefing on why this disease is notifiable, the notifiable one, ensuring the synergy in the management of cases from diagnostic point of view until the last offices in case the patient couldn't make it, so that the healthcare workers are taken care of. This House resolves commend ANC government for being a caring government by managing each case unique, using its available resources as far as communicable diseases are concerned. I shall so move.
The next member is Honorable Ntombela N of the ANC.
Honorable Speaker, in the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. Early in January, we visited a school in Chania Combined in Tugela District.
out of 35 teachers employed, 21 educators, including the principal and 2 deputies, have absconded, allegedly due to safety concerns, when there is only 1 case opened with the police. This has been the case since July 2019. Mjezi High is disrupted continuously, allegedly by the principal in collusion with some SGB members to suit their own ends. They will buy liquor for some students to cause anarchy in the school. We call on the MEC to intervene in the district. Kuningi okonakele kumapeketwane. Ngiyawuphakamisa somlo.
The next member and the final member on the list is Honorable Swartboy Ntombela, GN of the ANC.
Ndiyabulela mhlali ngaphambili. In the next sitting day of this House, I shall move as follows. This House notes the province of KwaZulu-Natal is a province that has different number plates, which creates a divide in the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Insurance companies continue to take advantage of this to their benefit, as they charge different insurance premiums on the basis of one's location, disregarding the fact that others have various addresses in which they live. This House notes that the Honorable Premier, Mr. Zigalala, and Honorable MEC for Transport, Mr. Ntuli, prioritize this matter and plead with our national government to fast-track and finalize this process to ensure that our province is united, as unity is sacrosanct in KwaZulu-Natal. I so move.
Thank you, honorable members. That is now the end of the item on bills and motions. Now we are going to start with orders of the day. I would like to take this opportunity to call to the front the Honorable MEC for Finance in KwaZulu-Natal to present to us his budget speech. Honorable Ravi Pillay.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honorable Premier, honorable members of the House, the heads of department, chief financial officers, head of provincial treasury and officials present, the former deputy speaker, Honorable Mishak Khadebe, we thank you for your constant and continuous support. Leadership of business, academia, religious and community leaders, as well as traditional leaders, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. I trust that if you have not received it already, members will in due course receive a substantial pack comprising the thick green book, estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure, a slightly thinner one, estimates of capital expenditure, and the socio-economic review and outlook. That is an expression of the amount of work and detail that has gone into producing this budget. Ben Okri, the acclaimed Nigerian poet, reminds us that, and I quote, "For we are all richly linked in hope, woven in history like a mountain rope. Together we can ascend to a new height, guided by our heart's clearest light. When perceptions are changed, there's much to gain, a flowering of truth instead of pain. There's more to a people than their poverty. There's their work, wisdom, and creativity," unquote. We are acutely aware of the poverty of too many of our people. In fact, it is calculated that 1/3 of our people rely on our social security net, on old age grants, on disability grants, on child support grants. We have consciously put in place this social security net because we are a government that cares, a government for the poor, a disciplined force of the left, an important defining political characterization of our government. But like Ben Okri says, we understand that this is not enough. This is not sustainable without our work, wisdom, and creativity. And I accordingly make the call today that in this historic year of 2020, let us, the people of KwaZulu-Natal, be defined by our work, our wisdom, and our creativity. As former President Mandela said, and I quote, "Our democratic gains will be shallow and persistently threatened if they do not find expression in food and shelter, in well-paying jobs, and rising living standards," unquote. President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his 2020 State of the Nation address, inspired by our powerful historic record, said, and I quote, "Our history tells us that when we are united in peace and faith, we can conquer all obstacles and turn our country into a place in which we all feel safe and comfortable. It is in that spirit that we now approach the present moment," unquote. And he goes on to say, "The greatest strength of our constitutional democracy and the reason it has endured is because we have been able to forge broad-based coalitions and social compacts, be they with business, labor, special interest groups, or wider civil society. Achieving consensus and building social compacts is not a demonstration of weakness. It is the very essence of who we are," unquote. So it is a choice we can consciously make. We can choose to prioritize our generally narrow sectarian needs, or we can choose to genuinely work together for the collective good. Having considered all our considerable challenges, acknowledged our mistakes, and reaffirmed commitment to our basic ethical value system, President Ramaphosa directs as follows, and I quote, "This year we fix the fundamentals, we pursue critical areas of growth, and we ensure excellence in planning and execution in government," unquote. Now, the global economic activity decelerated significantly last year, with continued weakness in global trade and investment, high debt, and deteriorating credit quality. Despite the signing of phase 1 of a trade agreement between China and the United States of America earlier this year, the continued trade war and the overall slowdown in the Chinese economy remained a threat to the global outlook. And of course, as we've heard repeatedly this morning, the situation is further exacerbated by the coronavirus outbreak that has the potential to further impede the world economy. China and the US are two of South Africa's major trading partners. The economic challenges of China and the US have a direct bearing on the economic prospects of South Africa. But I must say, as far as the coronavirus outbreak internationally and the incident that the Premier reported upon this morning, is something that we can have confidence that our national and provincial government has in hand. The manner in which the national minister has been communicating on the matter and responded as soon as the first incident was identified give us confidence that together with the president at the very top level, this situation will be handled. Notwithstanding the moderate rebound in the second quarter of last year, economic growth in South Africa is estimated to have remained subdued at an average of 0.4% in 2019 and is expected to grow at about 1% this year and in 2022. We are very mindful of the recently reported contraction in the last quarter, and it's tempting or it's easy to become pessimistic about the possibilities. But the same report that was accompanied by a projection that the agricultural sector is likely to rebound by as much as 5% in the next quarter. And that gives us cautious optimism that the situation is going to change. So as correctly pointed out by the South African Reserve Bank, IMF, and the World Bank less than 2 months ago, a multitude of challenges constrain the country's economic outlook. These challenges include, among others, subdued business confidence, infrastructure bottlenecks, especially in electricity supply, weakening external demand, particularly from the Euro area and China. These issues were further echoed by the Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation address last month. The President was bold and frank about the financial stress on the public energy utility, ESCOM, the deteriorating government budget balance, and increased debt sustainability concerns and debt service costs. The economic woes of the country are further reflected in Stats South Africa's data released last month, showing that the total number of liquidations increased to 2,042 in 2019 compared to 1,008, thus hinders the impact on service delivery. And the national plan's vision 2030 of increasing inclusive economic growth to above 5%. But let us not wallow in this negativity. To do this, to achieve the NDP Vision 2030, we need to remind ourselves, as Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said in his budget speech, and I quote, "Our economy has won before and it will win again. Before democracy, our growth was pedestrian. Indeed, between 1990 and 1992, the economy contracted for 3 years in a row. In the 15 years following democracy, economic growth averaged 3.6% a year, and the gross debt to GDP ratio declined from 46% to 26%. In the 5 years from 2003 to 2008, growth averaged around 5%, and South Africa was amongst the fastest growing major economies. The unemployment rate improved by 5 percentage points. Now, even after a decade of weak economic performance, South Africa still boasts deep and liquid capital markets, strong institutions, the most diversified economy on the continent, and a young population. Winning requires hard work, focus, time, patience, and resilience. Achieving economic growth and higher employment levels requires a plan, unquote. So I believe that the 2020 State of the Nation address and budget speech sets out that plan from a national perspective. Our task is to support, where necessary customize, and implement the plan for us in KwaZulu-Natal. All of us must do so wherever we are, in whatever space we occupy. The real economic activity in KwaZulu-Natal was not exempt from this national trend, and also shows a downward trajectory. In 2018, KwaZulu-Natal generated a regional gross domestic product amounting to 505.6 billion, which was equivalent to a 0.7% growth rate. The provincial economic growth rate is estimated to have contracted by 0.4% last year and is projected to record growth of only 0.4% this year before expanding to 1.3% in 2021. This not so energetic economic performance contributes to the overwhelmingly low employment rate in the province, as the economy is unable to create the opportunities to meet the growing labor force, especially for new entrants. And this represents our central challenge. The latest data by Stats South Africa released last month shows that the current expanded unemployment rate in KwaZulu-Natal is high at 41.9% compared to the national average of 38.7%, and this high unemployment rate is the main socio-economic challenge that contributes to high levels of poverty and inequality, thereby impacting on the overall quality of life of our people. High unemployment is particularly rife amongst the youth. In 2018, young people aged between 25 and 34 years experienced a high expanded average unemployment rate of 49.5%. Despite these challenges, we continue to have some key drivers in the provincial economy, namely the financial sector, at an expected GDP contribution of 17.5%, followed by manufacturing at 15.9% and trade at 14.3%. Tourism is also pivotal to economic performance in the province. In 2018, the number of people directly employed in the travel and tourism sector in KwaZulu-Natal was approximately 62,649, while the industry's total contribution to employment within the province was estimated at 124,027. Over the same period, tourism's direct contribution to GDP in KwaZulu-Natal was around 10.7 billion rand. Now, there's no doubt that the coronavirus is going to impact on tourism worldwide. In fact, it was reported yesterday that Lufthansa, I think it is, has parking off 150 planes because of their projection as to what impact it's going to have. But what we should then do is say, if we're going to lose on the international tourism market, let's concentrate on the domestic market. Let's persuade our people to spend their holidays here, and we have wonderful holiday destinations which many in the world would love to visit. The table at the bottom of page 5 sets out a breakdown of the KwaZulu-Natal economy in terms of agriculture, mining, manufacturing, electricity, construction, trade, transport, finance, and community services. And I thought it necessary to set this down because we can't have a spray and pray approach. And I think the Premier has been very, very determined to say each sector must be disaggregated. We must understand the issues at play in each sector and devise a plan that responds to this and measure the outcome of the efforts that we make. And in fact, in that spirit, some of the both agriculture and areas like clothing and textile, as he indicated in his SOPA, have been targeted for renewed and vigorous attention. Now, our province too reflects many of the nationally prevalent constraints for rapid economic growth. And these have been authoritatively identified as insufficient skills, highly skewed distribution of land and productive assets. And on this issue, we must be able to find each other, because there's no one who can dispute that the historic legacy of land distribution is something that must be confronted and dealt with. And we should be able to develop a consensus on the manner in which we are able to deal with that. Low levels of competition and integration into global and regional value chains, limited or expensive connectivity and underserviced historically disadvantaged settlements. And I'm quite pleased to report that just the other day, MEC Dube Ngube convened the technical team in charge of the broadband rollout in the province. And of course, the risk of climate shocks. So our approach seeks to deal with all these critical areas which find expression in the Premier's State of the Province address, which is the line of march for us in presenting this budget. The State of the Province address spells out the following priorities: job creation in a growing economy, including SMMEs and cooperatives, basic services, especially access to clean potable water, education, health and skills development, human settlements and sustainable livelihood, building a peaceful province, and building a caring and incorruptible government. Now let's look at the budget context and fiscal policy considerations. The world economic climate as outlined and the serious national economic constraints have been spelled out in the State of the Nation address and the national budget speech. We accept these conditions as reality, but cannot forever just lament these conditions while sinking into paralysis. The President and the Minister of Finance and our Premier have set out a detailed plan. We cannot be spectators in this plan, but must be active participants and enablers of these national goals. And I will address some of the ways the province will contribute to this later in this address. So it is against this context that I table the provincial budget today. Excuse me. KwaZulu-Natal sees its 8th consecutive year of budget cuts implemented against the provincial equitable share allocation over the 2020-21 MTF. These budget cuts relate particularly to the census data updates of the provincial equitable share formula, as well as fiscal consolidation budget cuts implemented by National Treasury. I think let's reduce that to simple language for the public domain. On the one hand, we have tough times. National Treasury has to cut budgets. And the technical term that's used there is fiscal consolidation. So that has a ripple effect down the line to us. The other is what is called the impact of the census data. Now, unfortunately, we have the reality that there is a migration from KZN, of this migration throughout the country, but for us, there's a significant migration from KZN to Gauteng. And every now and then, quite frequently, between Stats South Africa and the research institutions, National Treasury works on those statistics to rework the formula of allocation. We can't have a problem with it. It's a scientific formula and it absolutely makes sense. Although we have been saying that we need perhaps a debate on it, because you will note later on that with regard to education, we remain the single biggest allocation, although Gauteng is a bigger population than ours. That recognizes that our school population is even bigger than Gauteng. So the point that may need some debate later on or going forward into the future is that while there is this working age migration, clearly our people's children remain behind to be schooled here, and upon retirement they come back to their homes in wherever their homes should be. And that perhaps, as I said, needs some further research. So there are also some additions made to the provincial equitable share for specific purposes, and these are discussed later. The bulk of our budget cuts emanate from the data updates of the provincial equitable share formula, which result in budget cuts of 998.2 million, 1.6 billion, and 2.8 billion over the 2020-21 MTEF. This is one of the largest losses we have suffered, with only the 2013-14 census data update budget cuts being higher than that. KwaZulu-Natal's share of the fiscal consolidation cuts amount to 1 billion, 1.1 billion, and then 513.4 million over the MTEF. The equitable share of all provinces sees an aggregate fiscal consolidation cut of 4.8 billion in 2020-21, 5.2 billion in 2021-22, and 2.6 billion in 22-23, while KwaZulu-Natal's share, as already indicated earlier. The total budget cut for KwaZulu-Natal, taking into consideration the budget cuts as a result of the data updates to the formula as well as fiscal consolidation, then amounts to 2 billion in this coming financial year, 2.7 billion and 3.3 billion over the MTEF. National Treasury has indicated that the fiscal consolidation cuts are aimed at reducing spending levels across all three spheres of government as a result of lower projected national government revenues and the need to stabilize growth in national debt while providing support to ESCOM. These budget cuts were calculated twofold, with a portion relating to compensation of employees, and the cuts are made as a result of lower CPI inflation projections, while the other portion was given effect to by reducing the provincial equitable share by an amount equivalent to 2% of the non-cost of employment spending funding from the equitable share. The cut against compensation of employees is based on a decision by National Treasury, as published in the medium-term budget policy statement, that CPI inflation is to be provided for at 4.8% in 2021 and 2021-22, whereas provinces were previously told to budget for a 5.5% CPI in 2021 and 21-22. Now, this is important. It needs to be stressed that as President Ramaphosa puts it, and I quote, "The state wage bill savings will stem from lower wage growth, not job cuts." Of course, national nutrition must be looked at too to achieve our objectives. I'm not sure the House is aware, perhaps I can share that we did receive notice that organized labor will have a picket outside this legislature sitting today to make known their difficulties with A, what they call the austerity measures, and B, what they deem to be an intention by government to renegotiate the public service wage agreement. In all likelihood, after the sitting, I will go out to receive the memorandum if they are still there at that point in time. But the point I want to make is that we will respect the position of organized labor. Organized labor, political terms, forms part of a political alliance with the ruling party, and there are enough platforms for engagement. And I have no doubt that as a result of the engagement in the platforms that are there, this matter will be resolved. It comes back to the point I made at the very beginning. We are, as a governing party, a disciplined force of the left, but we deal with issues on the balance of evidence on each specific issue that we are confronted with. So it has been difficult to find solutions for the budget cuts of the nature that I've explained, and especially in view of the fact that KwaZulu-Natal has seen budget cuts for 8 consecutive years. At the same time, we have important priorities that require additional funding, such as security in schools, and we heard motions about that particular difficulty just now, learner transport, water provision, shortfalls in meeting our provincial property rate. So how do we effect these budget cuts while minimizing, as far as possible, the impact on service delivery spending? Do we keep the level of the contingency reserve unchanged? These questions were the focal points of a number of Ministers' Committee on the Budget Council and Provincial Executive Council discussions in the lead up to this budget day. The old adage that one should never let a crisis go to waste becomes relevant. It is an opportunity to do things that were not possible before. So the budget cuts over the past few years have made us focus our attention on improving efficiencies to ensure we continue funding the developmental priorities. The solution to this latest set of budget cuts was found in numerous ways. As a foundation to these solutions, the cost-cutting measures remain in place. It was also decided to not do away with the contingency reserve, which has been set at around the 400 million mark over the last MTEF. In this budget, there are proposals to lower the contingency reserve, but that the level should not reduce below 350 million rand, and I will discuss this in more detail later. Provincial Treasury also assessed our own revenue budgets of all the departments, and this resulted in a slight upward revision to the provincial own revenue budget over the 2021 MTEF. This upward revision helps to offset the budget cuts to a limited extent, given the size of our own revenue sources. When the 2019-20 budget was presented, the 2021 financial year had a contingency reserve in excess of 400 million, and this excess amount was also used to offset the budget cuts. The budget cuts after they were offset thus amount to 1.9 billion, 2.5 and 2.7 billion over the MTEF. These budget cuts are being funded as follows. And I may just explain that when we talk about provincial owned revenue, it's a very limited space. It's really largely MEC Ntuli's motor vehicle licensing income and the gaming and betting sector income, and there may be space to review that going forward. So the 2020-21 budget cut is offset firstly by the remaining positive 2019-20 net financial position. That, in simple terms, how much did we have left in the kitty at the end of this current financial year? This amount was 1.1 billion when the 19-20 adjustment estimates was tabled, but the Provincial Executive Council agreed that an amount of 200 million should be kept aside for possible allocation for water provision solutions. This notwithstanding the fact that the water and sanitation is a national competence and funded there, but because we were facing a problem that we wanted to respond to, we made this allocation. As such, 869.2 million is used to offset the budget cut. We have cut departments who have high expenditure on non-core activities with 30 million rand per annum callback from various departments in this regard. We also cut departments who showed significant underspending on compensation of employees in the 2019-20 by 50 million rand in aggregate per annum. And this was very carefully calculated because there's a constant vacancy rate. There's a natural attrition through either death or retirement or transfers, and that leaves a vacancy rate which is funded. So of course, in addition to that, there are inefficiencies in filling vacancies. But we'll be able to use that space to be able to get this 50 million rand. Allocating funds, we have allocated funds which have been kept in the Provincial Revenue Fund for the past few years. So we've literally gone into the cupboard and seen where are these boxes that have been lying there for some time and not being used. So example here is the cross-border crime fighting structure. Then funds returned to the fiscus by the KwaZulu-Natal Sharks Board in 2013-14, and funds returned to the fiscus by EDTIA in 2013-14. In aggregate, this allows 91.3 million to be allocated to offset the budget cuts in 2020-21. Having reviewed the public entities' 1920 mid-year reports, 50 million in aggregate is cut from various public entities per annum over the MTEF, with these cuts especially affected against those entities who showed low expenditure at the end of 18-19. Funds were also recalled from entities where these were transferred to the entity, but the entity has shown no or limited spending against these funds. The compensation of employees budget cut based on lower CPI projections is cut proportionately against all votes based on the size of their equitable share funded personnel budget. The balance of the budget cut, after it has been offset by the amounts discussed here, is cut proportionately from all 15 votes based on the size of their equitable share budget. Budget cuts always mean that tough decisions have to be taken, but rest assured that within this difficult fiscal environment, we did our utmost to protect the funds we spend on enhancing the lives of our people. This government remains committed, totally committed, to implement these budget cuts as far as possible where the cut will have the lowest service delivery impact. Additions to KwaZulu-Natal's provincial equitable share. On the other hand, National Treasury is adding some funds to the provincial fiscus. These funds are earmarked for specific purposes and amount to 74.6 million, 82.1 million, and 85.5 million over the MTEF. These additional allocations are as follows. Social development receives 8.8 million, 10.3 million, and 10.8 million over the MTEF. These funds are for provinces to continue to employ the additional social workers recruited in 2019-20 to deal with the high prevalence of gender-based violence, substance abuse, and issues affecting children. Social development receives a further 16.9 million, 20.9 million, and 21.9 million over the MTEF for the province to continue to support NPOs implementing social behavior change programs to address the social and structural drivers of diseases such as HIV, TB, and sexually transmitted infections. Education receives 48.9 million, 50.8 million, and 52.8 million over the MTEF, and this relates to the continued rollout of the Sanitary Dignity Project. So I think the House will note that we continue to respond to pressing issues facing our people. Some priorities were funded from the 1920 net financial position, but with these funds allocated in the 2021 MTEF. In this regard, Learner Transport under Vote 12 received 136.6 million to fund the shortfall in providing this service to 58,908 learners from 326 schools. The Office of the Premier received 50 million rand for the KwaZulu-Natal Youth Empowerment Fund, while 8 million in 2021 and another 8 in 21-22 was allocated to the provincial legislature to implement the job evaluation results. Additional funding is provided over the 2021 MTEF to the provincial legislature from the contingency reserve. In this regard, 10 million was allocated in 2020-21, would carry through to ease the pressure on the legislature's budget resulting from increasing the political parties fund from 30 million to 40 million since 17-18. The additional funding was allocated to assist with the pressures related to public participation costs and to offset pressure on the secretarial allowances paid to political parties. Due to the budget cuts, departments were encouraged to reprioritize their own budgets to ensure that all key government programs are sufficiently funded. Now let's look at the provincial fiscal framework for 2021. The provincial fiscal framework shows the amounts the province received in terms of the provincial equitable share, the conditional grants, and provincial own revenue allocations, as well as priorities funded using provincial cash resources. And the table there sets it out very clearly, and if we can go to the narrative thereafter, which explains it, that the transfers received from national are the provincial equitable share and the conditional grant allocation. So those are the two major amounts that the province receives. The provincial equitable share amounts to 111.4 billion, 117.8 billion, and 123.5 billion over the MTEF, while the conditional grant allocation amounts to 22 billion, 22.6 billion, and 23.6 billion over the MTEF. So KwaZulu-Natal's total budget from budget allocation from National Treasury is thus 133.5 billion in this coming financial year, 140.3 billion in 21-22, and 147.2 billion in 22-23. When we add our provincial own revenue and provincial cash resources to this, the total allocation over the MTEF is 138.6 billion, 144.1 and 151.1 billion, as shown in line 1 of the table at the top of page 11. Line 2 shows that the provincial departments are planning to spend 138.2 billion, 143.7 and 150.7 over the MTEF, while line 3 shows that the province continues to budget for a contingency reserve at amounts of 390 million in this coming financial year, 389.3 and 388.9 over the MTEF. And that at a glance tells you what is the provincial budget as a whole. As in the past, the contingency reserve is being kept for a number of reasons, but mainly to protect the provincial fiscus against the impact of unforeseen expenditure pressures when they arise. These funds can then be allocated in the adjustments estimate. Areas that have often received funding in year from the contingency reserve were learner transport, disaster repairs, security in schools, and the KwaZulu-Natal Youth Empowerment Fund, to name some of them. This contingency reserve also allows us to allocate funds in year in line with Section 31 of the PFMA, which deals with what may be included in an adjustments budget. The three areas that possibly need to be included in the adjustments budget, as the exact costings were not ready for inclusion in the main budget, are funds needed for the hybrid decentralization of the internal audit function in the province, renovations to the legislature building, as well as various capital requirements of His Majesty the King. Once these costings have been finalized, they will be presented to the Ministers' Committee on the Budget and the Provincial Executive Council for consideration in the 2020-21 adjustments budget. And I may add that our highlighting of the decentralization of the internal audit function and the potential for it to have to be funded is indicative of the seriousness with which we are approaching our audit improvement plan. We have recognized the deficiencies that came out of the audit outcomes and the irregular expenditure, and these need to be systematically attended to with both systems and people, and they will have budgetary implications, and I will say a bit more about that later on. Conditional grants. National Treasury indicated that direct grants in aggregate are reduced by 13 billion across the 9 provinces over the 2021 MTEF, in line with fiscal consolidation efforts. There are some changes to the conditional grant allocations for KwaZulu-Natal, with the grant allocation increasing by 229.9 million in 2021, decreasing by 505.8 million in 21-22, and then increasing again by 520.3 million in 22-23 when compared with the 19-20 baseline. Some amendments appear to provide for inflationary growth in the outer year. Some grants are absorbed by other grants, while others are new grants, but the components of the new grants were previously standalone grants. After these amendments, KwaZulu-Natal's conditional grant allocation amounts to 22 billion, 22.6 billion, and 23.6 billion over the MTEF. The largest conditional grant continues to be the HIV, TB, malaria community outreach and HBV vaccine grant with a budget of 6.5 billion rand, followed by the Human Settlements Development Grant at 3.4 billion. Other significant grants in terms of budget allocation are the Provincial Roads Maintenance Grant with a budget of 2.1 billion and the Education Infrastructure Grant with a budget of 2 billion rand. The following are the main amendments to the conditional grant allocations. The Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program grant reduces by 10.7, 15.4 and 8.4 million over the MTEF. These funds are not lost, they are simply allocated to the National Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development in order to support animal and plant health to sustain the country's exports. So these funds will be used for improved laboratory capacity, border controls and inspections by the National Department, and the grant amounts to 206.4 million in 2021. The Lima Letsima project grant sees a reduction of 6.2 million in 2020-21 and 2.3 million in 21-22, while increasing marginally by 94,000 rand in 22-23. An indirect Lima Letsima projects grant was created in the 1920 adjustments budget to fund the National Food and Nutrition Survey aimed at setting the baseline for poverty, vulnerability, and food security, insecurity in the country. This survey is being conducted by the Human Sciences Research Council, and this survey will continue in 2021, and the funds are shifted to enable the completion of the survey. The reduction in 21-22 then relates to fiscal consolidation budget cuts. The grant amounts to 73.2 million in 2020-21. The province receives 104.5 million in 2020-21 with regard to the EPWP integrated grants for provinces allocated to various departments as follows: Agriculture and Rural Development 4.6 million, COCTA 2.8 million, EdTIA 5 million, Education 2.2 million, Health 10.9 million, Human Settlements 11.6 million, Public Works 4.2, and Transport receives 63.1 million. The province receives a further 78.9 million with regard to the social sector EPWP incentive grant for provinces allocated to various departments as follows: Community Safety and Liaison receives 7.9 million, Education receives 22.8 million, and Social Development receives 48.1 million. Now in total, this is a significant amount of money for the EPWP program. And I think we must not underestimate or allow the oversight on the EPWP program to fall by the wayside. We certainly need to improve the quality of the training and the outputs and impacts of their deployment. The Education Infrastructure Grant shows a decrease of 17.2 million, 123.6 million, and 28.4 million over the MTEF. So the first point to be made here is that education still has 2 billion rand for its infrastructure. Secondly, education needs to be praised because the cuts would have been more severe if they had not performed so well in previous years in spending their infrastructure. That is what we mean when we talk about the incentivized nature of the grant. So that becomes a factor in the formula calculated. And of course, as we dealt with yesterday, we saw that in this financial year, education gets another 100 million rand as part of the incentivized nature of the grant and the fact that other provinces have not spent. The Health Professions Training and Development Grant and the Human Resource Capacitation Grant are merged into a new grant, namely the Statutory Human Resources and Health Professions Training and Development Grant. The new grant amounts to 593.8 million in 2020-21, and the grant was increased by 72.2 million, 63.5 and 86.3 million over the MTEF. This grant will have two components, with the Health Professions Training and Development component continuing to fund the training of health science trainees, and the Statutory Human Resource component will fund interns and community service posts. When the HR capacitation grant was introduced, it was primarily to fund shortfalls in paying interns and community service posts. Again, this is an example of our commitment to deal with challenges that have been objectively identified and the need for the Department of Health to beef up its professional skills, and this is a significant investment in that direction. The National Health Insurance Grant will be used to contract health professionals in the former NHI pilot districts. This is the continuation of an arrangement introduced in 2019-20 adjustments budget, where funds were shifted from the indirect NHI grant to the direct NHI grant. The amount allocated in this regard is 55.3 million, 57.4 and 59.6 million over the MTEF. Some changes are made to the HIV, TB, malaria and community outreach grant. The first change is that the human papillomavirus vaccine grant is absorbed into this grant as a new component, and the grant's name is changed to HIV, TB, malaria, community outreach, and HBV vaccine grant. Funds have also been reprioritized within the grant from the HIV and AIDS component to the community outreach services component to cover a shortfall in salaries. In aggregate, this grant decreases by 16.2 million in 2020-21, while increasing by 44.3 million in 21-22 and 432.7 million in 2022-23. The grant total in 2020-21 is 6.5 billion rand. This is a major flagship program of the department, and it shows the effort that our government is making over many years now towards the HIV/AIDS challenge. The Human Settlements Development Grant sees an increase of 278.1 million in 2020-21, while seeing reductions of 231.4 million and 147.5 million over the outer 2 years. There are two specific components to this grant, with 400 million allocated within the grant to the disaster recovery component and 446.9 million to the informal settlements upgrade partnership component. The grant amounts to 3.4 billion in 2020-21. The informal settlements upgrading partnership grant for provinces was initially allocated 553.8 million in 2020-21, but this now forms part of the Human Settlements Development Grant. From 21-22, this grant has an allocation of 714.4 million and 756.9 million in 22-23, which is a decrease when compared to the amount previously allocated by 79.4 and 36.9 million, respectively, with this grant affected by fiscal consolidation budget cuts. The Title Deeds Restoration Grant receives an allocation of 106.1 million in 2021 and is absorbed into the Human Settlements Development Grant from 21-22. The Mass Participation and Sports Development Grant is decreased by 23.2 million, 26.1 million, and 22.4 million over the MTEF due to fiscal consolidation budget cuts. The grant amounts to 88 million in 2020-21 after these reductions. The Provincial Roads Maintenance Grant sees an increase of 209.5 million in 2020-21, while decreasing by 167.3 million and 79.4 million in the two outer years. National Treasury notes that 500 million rand is deducted from all provinces in 2020-21 to be set aside as a provisional allocation for disaster recovery. For KwaZulu-Natal, there's an increase in the first year, again because of the incentive nature of this grant, while there are reductions in the two outer years. The grant amounts to 2.1 billion in 2020-21 after these amendments. The Early Childhood Development Grant under Social Development sees upward adjustments of 69.6 million, 84.5 million, and 116.1 million over the MTEF. The grant continues to have two components, namely the maintenance and subsidy component. The additions to this grant are to provide for an increase in the subsidy that is paid for children attending ECD centers and to provide access for additional children to attend ECD centers. This grant amounts to 193.4 million in 2020-21. The Community Library Services grant is decreased by 13.5 million, 11 million, and 1.5 million over the MTEF, in line with the fiscal consolidation cuts. The grant amounts to 181.1 million in 2020 after these budget cuts. With regard to infrastructure, it has been said that, and I quote, advancing equal opportunity and economic empowerment is both morally right and good economics, because discrimination, poverty, and ignorance restricts growth, while investments in education, infrastructure, and scientific and technological research increase it, creating more good jobs and new wealth for all of us, unquote. So while there have been budget cuts effected against this province, every effort was made to not effect these cuts against the infrastructure budgets of the departments. KwaZulu-Natal therefore continues to invest in infrastructure development, with a budget over the MTEF amounting to 13.9 billion in 2020-21, 13.9 billion in 21-22, and 14.6 billion in 22-23. This includes both equitable share and conditional grant-funded infrastructure. If we include the amount budgeted for infrastructure by human settlements, where the asset in the end does not belong to the state but to the beneficiary, the total infrastructure spend increases to 17 billion, 16.1, and 16.9 billion over the MTEF. This is a considerable injection of funds into the provincial economy. A detailed list of all the infrastructure projects that will be implemented over the 2020-21 MTEF is contained in the estimates of capital expenditure, which I have also tabled today. So let's look at some of the infrastructure plans planned for 2020-21. Transport. The Department of Transport will spend 24.3 billion over the 3 years, with the bulk of this budget relating to the maintenance and rehabilitation of the provincial road network. Some of the projects they will be implementing include the upgrade of 4.5 kilometers of the main road P700 corridor between Ulundi and Mpangeni, Shushlue and Mfulozi Game Park. The road provides an important economic mobility route connecting these centers. The upgrade of 7.4 kilometers of main road P318 in Harigwala at the foot of the Drakensberg Mountains in the Stanley Pass area. One of the main objectives of upgrading the road is to improve access between South Africa and Lesotho, thereby stimulating economic growth, and of course it's a key tourism area. The upgrade of 4.92 kilometers of main road P711 in Mapumulu, which serves about 9 secondary and primary schools, 3 creches, 2 health facilities, including the Mtandeni Hospital, 4 places of worship, as well as agricultural lands. This is also an important feeder road to the R74, which serves as an important link between the towns of Mapumulu and Stanger. The construction of the 150-meter Mshlalane River pedestrian bridge crossing over the Mshlalane River. The bridge is in the vicinity of the Camille Hook Primary School, the Trust Feed Creche, the New Hanover Pre-Primary School, and the New Hanover Farm School. The construction of the Nseleni River Bridge in Ulundi, which serves the Tambanana and Seleni communities. The Department of Health's infrastructure budget is 6.3 billion over the MTEF. The department will use this allocation for various projects, including the following: the construction of outpatient, emergency, and pharmacy facilities at Shlabisa Hospital at a value of 155.1 million over the MTEF, the renovation of staff accommodation, as well as construction of additional parking and recreational areas at King Dinizulu Hospital with a budget of 267.3 million over the MTEF, a new decentralized MDR TB unit at Osindisweni Hospital with 133.5 million over the MTEF budgeted for this project, and a new psychiatric unit, new forensic wards, and upgrade of staff accommodation at Mzimkhulu Hospital at a cost of 105 million over the MTEF. The Department of Education is budgeting to spend 7.7 billion on infrastructure over the MTF. The following are some of the infrastructure projects that will be undertaken, and these are quite exciting focus school projects. The department has committed some of its infrastructure budget to focus schools, namely the Agricultural School of Excellence in Mgunjlovu, the Maritime School of Excellence in Umlazi, and the Autism School in Umlazi as follows. The Agricultural School estimated project cost of 250 million rand, and land for this school has been identified and a professional team has been appointed. Construction will commence in 2020-21. The Maritime School of Excellence has an estimated project cost of 210 million. Professional team has been appointed. Construction expected in 2021. The School of Autism has a project value of 70 million rand, and construction will also start in the 2020-21 financial year. Focus will also be on the establishment of boarding schools as part of the process of consolidating small and non-viable schools. In this regard, boarding schools will be developed in Harigwala at a cost of 220 million rand, Zululand at a cost of 103 million, and King Cetshwayo at a cost of 180 million. To ensure a conducive environment with learners with special needs, various upgrades of existing special schools will be undertaken, with the Tongaat Special School benefiting from an upgrade of 38 million rand, the YWCA Special School in Amajuba benefiting from an upgrade of 75 million rand, and the Musa Special School in Zululand benefiting from an upgrade of 110 million rand. Dingukwazi Secondary School in Zululand will also continue to receive major upgrades amounting to 90 million rand. This project is 50% complete. Polela Special School in Harigwala, which entails the continued construction of a new school with a budget of 109 million allocated, is currently 90% complete. I hope MEC that percentage is correct. Open Gate Special School in Mgunjlovu district, which relates to major upgrades being done in the amount of 59 million, and these upgrades are at 78% completion. And Collingwood Primary School in Umlazi district, which relates to the construction of a new school, is allocated 80 million rand and is 20% complete. Now, the cost-cutting measures remain in place and are more important now than ever. The House, well, not all of the House, but those of you who have been in the House long enough will know that in around 2010, this province was faced with an overdraft. The cash position of the province was not good at all. And since then, we've imposed systematically these cost-cutting and austerity measures. So we're saying that, especially now, we have the experience, we have the systems, and we have to continue to look for efficiency savings in the face of the budget cuts. Every cent saved through cost-cutting allows us to redirect these funds to service delivery. As one world leader put it, and I quote, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship," unquote. So we need conscious, disciplined application to these principles. The full list of cost-cutting measures is contained in Chapter 2 of the Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure, which I have tabled. So let's look at the overview per vote for 2020-21. And I will briefly discuss the provincial budget per department. The table below shows the budget per department, and the narrative after that explains it, which in this coming financial year will be a total of 138.182 billion, excluding the contingency reserve. So Honorable MEC Mshengu, as Confucius said, if your plan is for 1 year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. If your plan is for 100 years, educate children, unquote. As such, the largest portion of the provincial budget still goes to the Department of Education at 41.4%. The budget over the MTEF is 57.2 billion, 59.6 billion, and 62.6 billion. President Ramaphosa said in his State of the Nation address that, and I quote, The most significant contribution we can make to inclusive economic growth is in the development of appropriate skills and capabilities, and this starts at the schooling level. KwaZulu-Natal, as was stated yesterday, received good results in 2019 with a total of 116,829 candidates sitting for the National Senior Certificate with 94,930 passing. The province improved from the 2018 pass rate of 76.2% to 81.3% in 2019, and this has been a singular achievement, rightly acclaimed and celebrated. The department plans to complete 4 new and replacement schools in 2020-21, and the priority will be on schools with overcrowding, creating new teaching and learning spaces, and those requiring specialist classrooms. The department will also be investing significantly in upgrading, repairing, renovating, and maintaining existing facilities to meet the minimum norms and standards. Further, the department will be implementing the focus schools that I spoke about and establish boarding schools as part of the plan to consolidate small and non-viable schools. The 2020-21 MTEF will also prioritize programs which I've already mentioned as the Agricultural School of Excellence, the Maritime School, and the School for Autism. In terms of supporting learners with special needs, 15 additional buses will be procured to assist in transporting these children to the 72 special schools. As mentioned, the department received additional funding for the Sanitary Dignity Project. The department will continue to participate in the national transversal contract to purchase the sanitary towels. The targeted number of learners is 956,000 from quintiles 1 to 3, but there are also requests from some quintiles 4 and 5 schools. The National School Nutrition Program will continue to provide nutritious meals to 2.3 million learners in approximately 5,342 schools throughout the province, including primary, secondary, and special schools in quintiles 1 to 3, and approximately 233,751 learners from quintiles 4 to 5. The budget allocated towards this is 1.7 billion rand. Again, this is an important investment reflective of our basic commitment to upliftment of the poor. The second largest portion of the provincial budget goes to the Department of Health at 34.8%. I think MEC Gugu Similane Zulu she's out to do her work on the latest crisis, but I think she's well up to the challenges faced by this department. The budget over the MTEF is 48.1 billion, 50.9 billion, and 53.4 billion. The bulk of the department's budget allocation is for the delivery of primary healthcare services to the approximately 87.4% uninsured population of KwaZulu-Natal towards the achievement of optimal health status of all communities in the province. The department plans to monitor access to health services by mapping the percentage of the population within a 5-kilometer radius of a health service. They also plan on reducing the HIV incidence from 0.61% in 1819 to 0.52%, and to increase the number of clients on ARV treatment from 1,387,688 in 2018-19 to 1.701 million in 2020-21. The plan is also to increase the average number of daily operational ambulances to 210. The department will also develop a patient record management system using in-house resources, with the initial pilot sites being Prince Mshieni and Madadeni hospitals, with another 10 hospitals to follow thereafter. The department plans to complete 35 upgrades and addition projects by March 21, including the 192-bed surgical ward at Ngwelezane Hospital, the installation of monkey barriers at RK Khan Hospital, and the replacement of perimeter fencing at Wentworth Hospital, and 26 clinics in the Zululand district, amongst others. The Dr. Pixley Kaisaka Seme Memorial Hospital is a 74,000 square meter, 500-bed regional hospital, which is almost complete with progress to date at 98%. The completion date is set for the 1st of June 2020, with commissioning of the facility planned for September 2021. September 2020. This indeed is a major achievement deserving of applause, and it's going to have a major ripple effect in taking the load off the other hospitals. Honorable MEC in Thuli, the Department of Transport receives 8.4% of the provincial budget at 11.6 again, and 12.1 billion over the MTEF. The bulk of the department's budget, construction of roads and maintenance of the provincial road network, and I've mentioned already some of the projects the department will implement in the infrastructure section of this speech. The budget caters for various projects, including the construction of new gravel roads, new blacktop roads, new causeways, new pedestrian and vehicle bridges, etc. The department will continue with road infrastructure development in rural areas. Through the EPW program, and really this department is the flag bearer of the massification of this program, the department plans to create 4,600,000 person days of employment, equating to 58,260 jobs to be created, which includes 42,000 women and 9,000 youth. This program contributes to the alleviation of poverty and the creation of meaningful employment opportunities for the unemployed. The focused areas for EPWP include safety maintenance, routine maintenance, and special maintenance. The department will continue to implement the Youth Vuga Ibambe routine road maintenance program, which is a progressive intervention aimed at uplifting unemployed youths, where 3,200 youth employment work opportunities were created in various road maintenance projects across the province. The department will also continue to employ 43,000 Zimbabwe contractors who undertake road maintenance work for the department. The department will continue to administer the learner transport services, with a total budget for this in 2021 being 366.8 million. This will see 58,908 learners from 326 schools being transported. Honorable Nkonyeni, the Department of Human Settlements receives 3.9 billion, 3.6 billion, and 3.8 billion over the MTEF. The main purpose of this budget allocation is for the provision of housing to various sectors of the population, including rural areas and informal settlements. Of course, the Human Settlements Department was the other department, together with education, that got the extra 98.5 million yesterday. The department is finalizing the 20-year strategy in 1920, which will guide the upgrading of all hostels across the province and ensure that development costs are standardized and delivery is upscaled. A major focus on the community residential unit program will be on the redevelopment of hostels and the construction of new CRU projects in 4 municipalities, namely Greater Kokstad with a total of 300 units, Bushla-Bezwe municipality, total of 150 units, Msunduzi municipality with a total of 1,164 units, and Newcastle municipality with a total of 540 units. The planning phase with these municipalities commenced in 1920. Continued focus and rollout of slum clearance project is a provincial priority, and projects in this regard are currently at various stages of their housing delivery cycle. There are a total of 743 informal settlements throughout the province, including the eThekwini Metro, which has also identified and documented all its informal settlements and has a plan to gradually upgrade informal settlements, including relocating additional families to greenfield projects. It must be emphasized that the core thrust of the informal settlement challenge is in eThekwini. That's where probably 80% of it lies. In fact, 25%, it's estimated that 25% of the population of eThekwini now live in informal settlements. And there's been some very interesting research as to about household size and the number of people employed and unemployed, and even the number of people paying rent in informal settlements. And I think all these has to go into the policy mix to establish the final plan. The department will continue implementing strategies to address core challenges that impede the achievement of targets set for fast-tracking the transfer of title deeds, and these challenges include beneficiary administration, formalization and regularization, township establishment and opening of township registers, and dispute resolutions. The repairing of houses damaged by flood disasters in the province will continue, and 400 million is allocated for reconstruction and repair of houses in the eThekwini Metro for 2020-21, with this amount forming part of the Human Settlements Development Grant. Honorable Khoza, the Department of Social Development receives 3.8 billion, 4 billion, and 4.2 billion over the MTEF. A large portion of the department's budget is for the provision of social work practitioners, and as mentioned earlier, the budget includes additional funding for the fight against gender-based violence and sexually transmitted infections, as well as additional social workers generally. The department is leading government's response to gender-based violence. In this regard, psychosocial support, implementation of prevention, education, and awareness programs, as well as the implementation of economic opportunities for women, are being prioritized. The department will focus on the continued establishment of white door centers of hope, and let me see if I'm correct, there are 2 such doors for men who are victims of abuse. The department will continue to establish fully functional therapy rooms in state facilities. Social workers rendering services in these therapy rooms will be capacitated with specialized skills and training in therapy and trauma management. The departmental call center will be strengthened through the placement of social workers to respond to all customer care issues, including those of gender-based violence and rape. The department will continue the screening of individuals and stakeholders, working with children to ensure clearance in terms of the Child Protection Register, and also partner with the Department of Education to capacitate educators on the management of child abuse. The department will continue to increase access to ECD for poor children through conditional grant funding. The mobile ECD program, which is aimed at expanding access to ECD in poor communities with little or no access to formal ECD centers, will continue to be implemented in the Ugu and Mkanyagude districts. The main component of the ECD grant is transferred directly to non-profit organizations to subsidize their services, with the second component to assist with the maintenance of 59 ECD facilities. I think I can dare say that this has been a singular achievement of the democratic era in expanding education to the ECD sector. Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, MEC, Honorable MEC Dube Ngube, EDTIA receives 3.3 billion, 3.5 billion, and 3.7 billion over the MTEF. The work of this department centers around stimulating economic growth in order to create jobs, as well as developing skills needed now as well as in the future. And having regard to all our challenges, this is the central challenge that we face as a provincial and national government. The budget provides for the Operation Sakinzuzo project, which supports small-scale sugarcane growers. This includes the planting of 600 hectares in 2020-21, the establishment of the Edendale Auto Service Hub, which is the first pilot project in this regard, will be a priority. And the project has been adopted and approved by the Msunduzi municipality, who donated the land earmarked for the construction of this hub, and the department reprioritized funding in 2020-21 for the project. The implementation of the Aerotropolis development, aviation, and the regional airport strategy continue to be focal areas, as well as the implementation of Operation Vula. With regard to Operation Vula, the department will continue to work with municipalities to identify regional economic opportunities for implementation through the Operation Vula project policy. The department will promote innovation and technology development from 2 fronts, namely the innovation stream under the Operation Vula project, and also focus on developing grassroots innovation in communities, while the University Technology Transfer Program will focus on assisting the university community with translating their research outputs into tangible products, applications, and systems. The Operation Vula project provides grant funding in areas such as manufacturing, SMME development, tourism, economic infrastructure development, and job creation, with a focus on providing these types of skills and business opportunities at a local level. The department will continue with capacity building initiatives with existing and new partners. The existing agreement with TVET colleges will continue and includes training cooperatives in technical, business management, and cooperative governance skills. The department will prioritize providing comprehensive business and technical support to small enterprise operations within the Operation Vula commodities such as cleaning detergents, clothing and textile, bakery products, pulp and paper products. The support will include the establishment of shared production facilities and economic infrastructure for small enterprises. The department will also promote and support secondary marketing cooperatives to create marketing platforms for the goods and services produced by the primary cooperatives. Furthermore, support will be given to municipalities in ensuring sustainability of tourism structures and providing guidance on the development of tourism sector strategies. In this regard, support will be given to municipalities in key infrastructure projects emanating from the municipal consultations, such as visitor information centers, tourism signage, and in partnership with the Tourism Grading Council of South Africa, the department will support small and medium enterprises to become star-graded establishments to improve their service and quality standards. In line with the fourth industrial revolution, the department, in partnership with its public entities, will continue with the digitization drive with the intention to set up digital centers in the following identified areas: Isitebe Industrial Park, Itegweni Metro, Kwamashu, Kokstad, Mfolozi, Jozini, Ngwavuma, Kashlamba, Amajuba, Newcastle, and Edumbe. The digital centers will, of course, provide access to ICT. ETIA will aim to provide more pronounced support with respect to the development of alternative and or renewable energy in the province. Projects will range from the Urban Alternative Energy Program to the focused Rural Renewable Energy Program, including support of the biofuel initiatives that are aimed at using sugarcane. The department will broaden environmental awareness and capacitation of all sectors of society, which will culminate in the commemoration of World Environmental Day taking place on 5 June 2020. The department will continue to provide support to recycling entrepreneurs in KwaZulu-Natal so as to reduce the volume of waste that is being disposed of, and will continue to partner with municipalities to improve the operations of waste disposal sites. The Department of Agriculture, Honorable Stone Molloy, receives 2.5 billion, 2.7 billion, and 2.8 billion over the MTEF. The agricultural development approach for the province remains premised on the transformation and promotion of previously disadvantaged producers, ensuring their inclusion in the agricultural mainstream economy, in particular to achieve household food security, increased production, increased productivity, and promotion of competitiveness and commercialization of agricultural enterprises, especially of the smallholder producers. The overarching interest remains the transformation of key institutions in agriculture and the agri-business value chain through the inclusion of designated groups, that's women, youth, and people with disabilities in agriculture. The aim of this transformation is to promote agricultural growth and to offer multiple economic opportunities. Furthermore, the department plans to enhance household food security and food supply through efficient utilization of agricultural land, expansion of irrigable land, improved market access, and agro-processing of agricultural products. The horticulture program will continue promoting vegetable production, including mushrooms for household food security, in line with the RACET program, as well as subtropical products such as macadamia, citrus, mango, and amarula. The interventions will include increased market access, increased extension support, and encouraging value addition to primary products, provision of capacities building to smallholder farmers, and encouraging export of primary and processed products, as well as promoting partnerships with commodity organizations. The department will continue to support initiatives to improve market access for communal cattle through livestock auctions, improve traceability, that's animal identification, provide training on nutrition, provide livestock-related infrastructure, and provide the improve the livestock genetic pool. The Provincial Executive Council took a resolution that this department must develop a plan to produce its own seeds and seedlings in partnership with relevant institutions. This plan will see the department supplying its own seeds and seedlings to qualifying farmers as part of RACET. The department plans to use its own 6 research stations establishing nurseries with the department's own seedlings, agronomic seeds, and fruit tree propagation. These research stations are geographically spread under different bioresource groups and can specialize in producing different seeds and seedlings. Honorable MEC Shlomuga, COCTA receives 1.9 billion, 2 billion, and 2.1 billion over the MTEF. The department will continue to support local government to promote good governance and to enhance financial management in municipalities for improved service delivery, as well as provide support and build the capacity of traditional institutions. In terms of local governance, the main focus for 2020-21 includes the implementation of the district delivery model, which advances the idea of one budget, one plan, one district for each district, providing support to municipalities in development of their IDPs through capacity building sessions, workshops, IDP forums, and IDP assessments, as well as the implementation of an audit outcome strategy to support municipalities to improve their audit status, amongst others. The National Development Plan stipulates that for the country to support its long-term economic objectives and development goals, South Africa needs to focus on investing in basic services such as electricity, water, sanitation, telecommunications, and public transport. In this regard, the department, that's COCTA, that is, will coordinate stakeholders to develop provincial water and energy master plans, which will indicate the strategies to meet the water demand in the province. The department will also monitor the implementation of service delivery programs relating to electricity, indigent policies, as well as operational and maintenance plans. The department will continue with the water, sanitation, and electricity backlog study, which focuses on existing backlogs, as well as assessing the state of existing infrastructure in the province. This backlog study is anticipated to be completed in May 2020. The department will also provide support to municipalities to develop nodal plans for new towns and to accommodate growth in small towns with the aim of attracting investment and creating employment in these towns. The municipal space will be an area of priority focus for our provincial government. We are very mindful that it is in this arena that is our crisis of governance, of financial management, and of implementation finds its most acute expression. And I think the provincial government is very alive to the fact that this is a separate sphere of government, and the Constitution demarks the boundary lines very clearly. At the same time, it is the space where some of the most serious challenges express themselves. And I think we need to record, as you have said already yesterday, Premier, that the interventions in the Tegweni municipality and the Msunduzi municipality are indicative of the determination and the prioritization of this issue for the provincial government. And we can also say that we're very aware of the issues in Ugu, Ladysmith, Newcastle, and this considerable amount of work that is happening that perhaps is not in the public domain to resolve those issues. But what is clearly emerging, that's the issue of political instability, capacity, financial management, and issues of operations and maintenance that are key issues that require attention in our municipalities. What is not dealt with in this budget is the budgets of the municipalities themselves. And that's a total of 69.6 billion operating expenditure and a further 17.2 billion capital expenditure, a total of 86.8 billion, and these figures are not in the speech if you're looking for it, but a total of 86.8 billion is money which municipalities get via their own revenue or grants that come from national or other sources. And of course that's a different space for accountability, but provincial treasury has been tasked by the Provincial Executive Council with some serious oversight responsibilities in relation to these municipalities. Honorable Nkonyeni, again, the Department of Public Works receives 1.8 billion, 1.8 again, and 1.9 over the MTEF. The department will pay property rates relating to provincial properties while also focusing on its core mandate, which is infrastructure delivery. All infrastructure to be delivered will be planned and implemented in line with the infrastructure delivery management system processes, the department is expected to roll out the implementation of the infrastructure progression model implementation plan as prescribed by National Treasury. The role of Provincial Treasury will be to assess the infrastructure progression model implementation plan budget. The department will continue implementing the KwaZulu-Natal Infrastructure Master Plan, utilizing its infrastructure program management unit. The department will maintain and update the consolidated data relating to infrastructure on a virtual spatial platform, which will be hosted in a publicly accessible platform to assist decision makers. The KwaZulu-Natal Entrepreneurial Development Center project will be at construction stage in 2021 and is anticipated to be completed by October 2021. In terms of job creation, the department will continue to implement the EPWP Schools Maintenance Program. It is anticipated that this program will be implemented in over 2,000 schools across all districts, and it is anticipated that more than 5,000 beneficiaries will be supported through this program. The department will provide technical support to all provincial departments and municipalities in order to achieve the targets of EPWP work opportunities. The department, as the provincial coordinator of EPWP, will ensure that 54 municipalities and 12 provincial departments are reporting on EPWP in 2020-21. And this is a very important piece of work for two reasons. The one is that EPWP is an incentive grant. The more you perform, the more you're likely to get. And of course, if you don't perform, they cut and take it away. The second one is that it's affecting your audit outcomes. And I know that public works is at risk in terms of its audit outcomes because of the way other provincial departments and municipalities in particular control and record and regulate the work around EPWP. And without going into detail, we simply don't want, apart from the bookkeeping and record keeping, we don't want to have ghost employees in that EPWP sector. Honorable Mavimbela, the Department of Arts and Culture receives 1 billion in 2021 and 1.1 billion in the 2 outer years. The department will ensure cultural advancement in the province through hosting various cultural events and by providing reading and writing material. The department will construct new libraries to increase the reach across the province. The social cohesion and moral regeneration strategy will continue to be a priority and is aimed at eradicating social ills by increasing community participation in various community-based structures, increasing advocacy, instilling acceptable morals and values, and supporting various programs that seek to unite South Africans under a common identity. The school culture program will also be rolled out in partnership with the Department of Education in an effort to curb the increasing rate of dropouts, teenage learner pregnancy, substance and drug abuse, and other social ills prevalent among the youth. The department will support a reading and understanding program for children under 10 years of age in various districts through procurement of books while hosting reading and writing competitions in collaboration with the Department of Education. The construction of various libraries will commence in 2020-21. For example, the Mzumbe, Mbali, Ndaleni, Dukuduku, and KwaMdagane and Danhauser libraries. The department will establish 10 modular libraries to address the service delivery gap in this regard, and the department will continue with the provision of free internet services to 141 community libraries. The renovation of the KwaDuguza Museum has been budgeted for in 2020-21 and 21-22, and it is envisaged that the history of heroes such as King Shaka and Nkosi Albert Luthuli, among others, will be safely preserved at the museum. The Office of the Premier receives 800.2 million, 77.4 million, 775.4 million, and 812.3 million over the MTEF. The department has set itself 4 outcomes, namely improved governance and accountability, improved coordination, integration and efficiency in government, inclusive stakeholder engagement, and improved partnerships, as well as a professional and ethical provincial administration. The Provincial Planning Commission will continue to support the relevant line function departments in pursuing key interventions such as the formalization of rural settlements, renewable energy opportunities, and improving information and interventions relating to water. Perhaps we might need a new dialogue with traditional leadership on formalizing rural settlements. I don't need to go into more detail. I'm sure that will happen in due course. Since its inception in 2009, Operation Sukuma Sake has continued to grow and develop as a provincial integrated service delivery model for the community and service as a community mobilization vehicle where communities come together and address challenges facing them. The department, and I note yesterday there was reference to war rooms as if it was some new thing. The department has strengthened war rooms as part of ensuring that communities have functional focal points to support mobilization and integrated service delivery. OSS cabinet days are used to meet the community, communicate and assess the status of service delivery and impact thereof at community level, as well as inculcate and strengthen integration and public participation. Focus will be on ensuring that the OSS is integrated into the district development model launched by the President in 2019. I think we need to record that the OSS model has received recognition at the level of the United Nations as a creative approach to development planning here in KwaZulu-Natal. The Premier initiated the Siyashlola We Inspect program, where he will be conducting unannounced site visits to projects throughout the province in order to monitor the implementation thereof and to provide timeous interventions as and when necessary, and this will continue in 2020-21. With regard to the Nkululeko Development Project Phase 2, the focus will continue to be on the Mzinyati and Utugela districts within Voti local municipality, and also including the areas of Weenan and Muden. The project is going to be integrated into the district development model. The KwaZulu-Natal Youth Empowerment Fund will continue in 2020-21 and will be increased by a second tranche of 50 million rand. The fund will continue to support youth businesses and is targeting to support at least 60 youth businesses in 2020-21. I think I can add here, Premier, that yesterday there was some noise about how did this happen, but it was advertised, you received applications, you had a full professional team that assessed these applications against various criteria, including the potential, the technical ability, geographic spread, and then it was all announced very publicly at a function here in the City Hall in Pietermaritzburg. And I'm sure the same level of thoroughness and transparency will accompany the second tranche. Provincial Treasury received 718.8 million, 749.4 and 785.3 million over the MTEF, and is largely for financial governance, for general oversight of all departments, municipalities and public entities, internal audit, supply chain management, as well as support for transversal financial systems. The key focus areas include improved audit outcomes across the province, as well as on-budget spending, and for the province to remain cash positive. Continued focus will be hands-on engagement and support to departments and public entities to enhance their financial accounting and reporting performance, as well as continued staff development and training programs to develop and retain the requisite financial management skills and expertise. A significant role in the Operation Clean Audit will be played with the main aim to attain improved provincial audit outcomes. I must pause here to say that, as the Premier indicated very strongly in the SOPA, we want to change the picture with regard to audit outcomes and irregular expenditure in KwaZulu-Natal. And that will not just happen because we say it, it requires a detailed plan and dedicated, disciplined implementation. And I think the plan has built into it new accountability mechanisms at the department with the MEC, HOD, and CFO, with the help of Treasury, and then finally at the Provincial Executive Committee level, there's a new inbuilt mechanism to deal with it on a consistent basis. Risk-based audit with specific focus on overall governance will be performed. Areas that require internal audit, process enhancements will be identified, and departments will be assisted in redesigning these processes to ensure that all risks are well controlled. There will be continued focus on IT audit reviews, transversal reviews of SCM, transfer payments, asset management, as well as performance information. In terms of municipal financial management, there will be continued focus on improving technical support to delegated municipalities. I think the public needs to know that Provincial Treasury deals with what is called delegated municipalities, that is National Treasury gives Provincial Treasury the responsibility to monitor and provide oversight. The non-delegated municipalities in this province are Tegweni, Msunduzi, and Mshlatuzi. More focus will be played on in-year monitoring, including statutory returns, as well as the preparation of monthly, quarterly, mid-year, and annual consolidated reports on the state of financial performance. The focus will be on assisting, supporting, and monitoring municipalities with financial management and compliance with the annual reporting framework. Again, I may pause here to say that municipalities now know that they cannot have unfunded budgets. In other words, developing budgets which are not credible, which reflect income which is not likely to be received. And between provincial treasury and national treasury, you will declare that to be an unfunded budget. There were 17 municipalities in the last towards the end of last year, that were affected by a provisional declaration that their budgets were unfunded, but they were able to respond with the help of provincial treasury and persuade national treasury to change its position. There were 4 municipalities that had its equitable share withheld because they were not able to respond in time and with the relevant quality to persuade us that their budgets were credibly funded. But they too pulled up their socks and eventually got the equitable share portion about 6 weeks later. We're now dealing with adjustment budgets at municipalities. And those adjustment budgets too must be credible and deemed to be funded and not unfunded. Because if they're found to be unfunded, National Treasury is very serious about withholding your equitable share, and we don't want to see that happen. And it can be avoided simply by doing our work thoroughly. Provincial legislature. The provincial legislature received 653.1 million, 682.2 million, and 706.8 million over the MTEF for the effective procedural and related support to the House and to committees and to facilitate public participation. The legislature will continue its oversight role over departments and public entities. Public involvement initiatives like taking legislature to the people and sector parliaments will continue, including youth parliament, women's parliament, and people with disability parliament. Honorable Mavimbela, again, the Department of Sport and Recreation receives 481.2 million, 502.2 million, and 525.1 million over the MTEF to promote sport and recreation through the provision of various programs to promote an active and healthy lifestyle and talent optimization, with an emphasis on delivering programs at a ward level through a ward intervention program. The department will facilitate the provision of new sport and recreation facilities and repairs to existing facilities. The department plans to construct 61 sport and recreation facilities in total, comprising 3 basic sports and recreation facilities in municipalities such as Mvoti, Mfolozi, and Mtubatuba, 33 children's play gyms across the province, and 22 multi-purpose courts. The department also aims to complete phase 2 of 3 district fitness complexes in Mzumkulu, Tugela, and King Cletchwai. In addition, the department will deliver 12 new rural cricket hub centers. The department will continue to focus on the delivery of district, provincial, and national school sport competitions targeting 35,000 learners. These competitions are divided into winter, summer, and autumn games to coincide with the sport code sessions. The department will also provide 400 schools with sport equipment and sport attire to conduct school sport activities. The club development program is an essential part of the mass participation program, which is aimed at increasing participation in sport and recreation at the local levels, indeed at the most basic levels, in order to develop age group leagues that can affiliate to the local code associations. The department is targeting 225 wards for provision of equipment and attire to 1,100 clubs. In addition, the department is targeting 150 age group leagues, primarily in football, netball, and volleyball. The Department of Community Safety and Liaison receives 249.1 million, 251.5 and 263.5 million over the MTEF. And I think members of the public will understand that the South African Police Service is generally a national competence, and that's where the bulk of the budget lies at the national level. This is a small component dealing with community safety and liaison. So the department will undertake police oversight programs through the development of improvement plans for each police station, focusing mainly on 130 police stations that were flagged as a serious concern during the national census project. The department will continue to solidify community police relations through the establishment of safety and crime-fighting structures, and will further capacitate community structures through a number of programs for monitoring and evaluation and crime prevention. Crime prevention initiatives, which are part of the safety promotion programs, will be continued, and emphasis will be placed in programs aimed at addressing gender-based violence in communities. So, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, I am tabling the Appropriation Bill 2020 in this House today, which, when passed, gives the legal basis for departments and public entities to spend their 2020-21 budgets. The Appropriation Bill is prepared in 3 languages, namely English, isiZulu, and Afrikaans. And Table 4, which sets out the budgets of each department, is set out on that page. In conclusion, despite the budget cuts, our firm commitment to the people of KwaZulu-Natal is that we will protect and have protected government's key priority programs so that we do not lose sight of our vision of ensuring the better life for all. Provincial Treasury took very conscious and mindful steps in this budget to protect the service delivery budgets of departments from being cut. I wish to conclude by calling on all of us to step up to face the challenge that history has placed before us. It is a crucial phase. We dare not fail, for we will be judged harshly by posterity for any shortcomings. The challenge we face today is different from that of Luthuli or Tambo or Mandela. We are not required to go out and face bullets or go to jail. We are simply asked to be sober, determined, disciplined, and focused, and work hard every day for as long as we are called upon to do so. I want to thank our Honorable Premier, Mr. Sishle Zikalala, and my Provincial Executive Council colleagues for their support in putting together this budget in very trying times. My gratitude goes to the Ministers' Committee on the Budget. Our focus in all decisions taken was to protect the funds allocated to departments for the improvement of the lives of our people. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the Honorable Minister of Finance and National Treasury officials for their guidance and technical support. I thank members of the Provincial Legislature, and in particular the Chairperson, Mr. S.C. Nkosi, and members of the Finance Portfolio Committee for their support. I thank the heads of department, chief financial officers, and all provincial government officials for the role they play in managing their budgets. You know, I said that if you have a popular MEC for finance, it means the MEC is not doing his job. Thank you, HOD Magugula and your team, for working incredibly long hours to produce such detailed budget documents. Your work ethic and dedication is truly appreciated. Finally, I thank my organization, the African National Congress, and of course my family and my wife who are seated there, for their continued steadfast and unwavering support. I thank you.
Thank you, MEC. Thank you, MEC Pillay. Now, Now, we are going to refer the bill as tabled for processing by the Portfolio Committee on Finance and the Standing Committee on Oversight. Having said that, now we are coming to the next item on the orders of the day, which is debate and voting on the KwaZulu-Natal Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020. We're going to call upon the chairperson of the Finance Portfolio Committee, Honorable Keifas Nkosi, to table the report of the committee.
Like Mandela, I was given the English name at school. Yeah, that's what happened. From the illiterate parents of mine, both of them. Honorable Speaker, Dunankulu executive yakho, my colleagues and the oversight legislature KwaZulu-Natal, and the guests, Siyanibingelela. The KwaZulu-Natal Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill of 2020 was tabled in this house yesterday, and it was tabled by the MEC for Finance. The bill was thereafter referred to the Finance Portfolio Committee for consideration and processing, then eventually reporting to this house. The committee was briefed by the Provincial Treasury same day, and on the same date, the committee considered the bill and want to report to this house that all parties unanimously supported this bill. Having considered the bill, Honorable Speaker, and the accompanying papers and reports, the Portfolio Committee supports the bill and strongly recommends that all of us in this august house vote in its support. Thank you very much.
Honorable S.E. Manqele of the ACDP, he is not in the house. We'll move to the following speaker for 3 minutes, Honorable M.E. Pakati of the ATM. He is also not in the house. We will now move to the Honorable Esther Kur Rajbansi of the NF for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable MEC Ravi Pillay. The Minority Front supports the Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020. The Department of Education and Human Settlements must be commended for obtaining the allocation of the conditional grants of 100 as well as 98.5 million rands respectively. Honorable members, any department that loses conditional grants is a travesty for our service delivery hungry citizens. However, the above departments have shown the ability to plan and monitor infrastructure activity. And of course, infrastructure is easy to see, so we cannot miss under or good performance. There are still conditional grants, however, that regularly go underspent. Honorable MEC, the terms of reference should be expanded for these grants to meet current development challenges. For example, the HIV and AIDS grant. In health, we should consider including other associated infections for flexibility of use. Furthermore, hospital healthcare associated infections and staff safety is also a concern, and this cost should be factored in, especially during quarantine phases where staff shortages occur. Therefore, all portfolio committees should workshop every underperforming conditional grant, even in agriculture, to resolve bottlenecks, given our budgetary constraints and external influences. These provincial allocations in the second adjustments appropriation also shows that we have dedicated officials who should be rewarded for utilizing good implementation processes. To the department.
Honorable, Please take a seat.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise under Rule 55 and just questioning the relevance. We're dealing with the adjustments budget here and not the budget as tabled by the MEC today.
Thank you. Sit down, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable Rogers. I will read for you Rule 55. Rule 55 says irrelevance or reputation. The presiding officer may, after having called attention to the conduct of a member who persists in irrelevance or reputation of arguments, direct the member to discontinue his or her speech. The presiding officer. You are a chief whip of your party. You are not the presiding officer. That rule, it's for the second time I'm reminding you about that rule. Honorable Rajpanzi, continue with your debate, ma'am. Honorable Rajpanzi, sit down. Honorable Rogers.
Speaker, with respect, I'm rising on Rule 55 to request you to make a ruling on the relevance of the input made by the honourable member.
The honourable member will continue her debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'll await your ruling on that, but given my over 20 years experience in this legislature, I am not speaking at all about the minister's debate today. That's for another day. I am just speaking about appropriations in general and my views on that. To the Departments of Education and Human Settlements, well done for shaping the department's resources effectively, displaying capability, capacity, potential, and contribution. These, Honourable MEC, are the 4 pillars of implementation theory that all departments should be using in risk management, and with these words, the Minority Front supports the Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. The next member is for 3 minutes. Honorable V.R. Mlojwa of the NFP. Honorable members, noma kula ehholo uyasondela uma ungolandelayo ukukhuluma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable members and guests. The NFP supports the bill. And we request that all what is contained in the bill should be implemented accordingly in order for the money of the public to reach the community down. Thank you.
Is Honorable A.V. Khoza of the EFF. He's not in the house. The next, the next member for 3 minutes, Honorable F.A. Rogers from the DA.
Speaker, I'm going to speak to the Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill, which I didn't know had anything to do with health, but there were primarily 2 departments that were benefiting. So let me, for the purposes of this debate, stick to the Second Adjustments Appropriation. Firstly, I think it's important that as a legislature, we give thanks to the Northern Cape, the Gauteng, and the Free State, all 3 ANC-run provinces, for not spending their budget and thus allowing this province to gain for additional funding for both human settlements and for education. As we've said in the past, and our request to the committee chairs, the MECs, and the MEC of Finance is to ensure that this funding is spent timeously. Now, I've also been made aware that this department, the Department of Education, is possibly going to take this funding and spend it on park homes. Now, that's a concern to me. I certainly know that park homes serve their purposes during times of crisis and during storms and damage, but as a long-term solution, I would hope that we put something more substantial in the ground which gives this province the asset. And then finally, just to reiterate what His Majesty said here 2 days ago, in that we need to ensure that whatever conditional grants are spent on infrastructure, that the projects are completed and there's value for money at the end of the process. The DA supports the second adjustments appropriation bill. Diyabulela Somlo.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next member for 3 minutes is Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Oh, you are the leader of the official opposition, sir.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members and guests, as has been announced by the Honorable MEC Pillay, the province receives 100 million on education for education infrastructure grant, and again receives 98.5 million on human settlement development grant. The IFP welcomes all the financial resources aimed at improving the lives of our people, especially the poorest of the poor. We dare not forget that the financial year 2018-19, our Human Settlements Department had also suffered the same fate of underspending of around 50 million on the same program. Our Provincial Education Department has been repeatedly underspending year after year on maths, science, and technology grant allocation. Even this current financial year, the Department of Education is trying hard to harshly reflect spending on this allocation before the financial year ends in the next 3 weeks. Whilst welcoming the incoming funds to be brought in this adjustment appropriation bill, we appeal to all concerned not to be swallowed in the zeal for spending and forget that there are compliance laws in spending public funds. These funds should be utilized to make an impact in the long-standing plight of the people of our province in the provision of decent housing. For far too long, the people of our province have waited for the government rescue in the transit camps in Umlazi, Ispingo, and other areas. These conditions into which those people have been subjected to by the eThekwini municipality are unacceptable. An immediate rescue plan will be more than welcome. In the same vein, the education infrastructure grant of 98.5 million allocated to our Provincial Department of Education needs to bridge the plight of underdevelopment of many, especially rural schools in our province. Many schools in our province do not have proper sanitation facilities, do not have laboratories or libraries. Some schools still remain in dilapidated state even at this age and day. We hope that the Education MEC and his team will put this money in good use. The IFP is committed to support good government initiatives and make the year 2020 a year of action. The IFP supports the second adjustment appropriation bill 2020. Thank you.
The next member for 3 minutes is Honorable CQ Madhopa of the ANC.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, and all members of the executive, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, as African National Congress, we welcome the allocation of extra budget to the Department of Human Settlement and the Department of Education. The Department of Human Settlement was reallocated 98.5 million for Human Settlement Development Grant, whilst the Department of Education received 100 million for the Education Infrastructure Grant. We have noted that these funds have been received late, but we are convinced as a portfolio for finance that the allocated funds, the two departments are going to spend it by the end of the current financial year because they have already committed these funds. We are happy to know that these two departments have demonstrated sufficient capacity to spend as per the call by the Honorable Premier S. Zigalala during his State of the Province address, hence the allocation to these two departments. We wish to encourage all other departments to be motivated by these two above mentioned departments and up their spend on budget allocated to them. Once again, congratulations to these two departments for attracting the money back home. Ukuze abantu bakithi bahlomule kwintuthuko elethwa uhulumeni oholwa nguKhongolose. We appreciate all the parties that are part of the Finance Portfolio Committee because this particular adjustment budget was unanimously supported by all the members that are serving in the Portfolio Committee. The ANC supports the second adjustment appropriation budget. I thank you.
Now we will call upon the MEC of Finance to respond for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I think it's not really necessary to take the full 5 minutes. But thank you for the unanimous support by all the members and all the parties. I think the chairperson, with his customary efficiency and precision, has processed this in the Finance Committee. Honorable Rajbansi, we appreciate your, notwithstanding the attempted criticism, we appreciate your passion really for all aspects of governance and the medical sector in particular. Honorable Mlotshwa and Honorable Rogers, Honorable Shlabisa, and finally Honorable Mashlopa, thank you again for the support. We accept that any conditional grant and any expenditure must be accompanied by the requisite levels of governance compliance. It's an issue that's receiving very serious attention by our provincial government. But let's not be too critical at this point in time. Let's celebrate. We got extra money. It is an item of celebration which we should recognize and record as a province. I'm tempted, Honorable Rogers is not in the house, so there's he walking in back in time for my criticism, that I can point out to cases in the Western Cape where the Western Cape in the city of Cape Town had money returned because they could not spend it in time. But these are objective difficulties which we must find systems and people to be able to deal with. So thank you, Speaker. I think that the province as a whole, we appreciate this additional funds, and I'm sure the departments themselves, as well as Treasury and the Office of the Premier, will keep an eye on the manner of its expenditure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Thank you, honorable members. Now we have come to the end of the debate on the second adjustment bill. And I now put the KwaZulu-Natal second adjustment appropriation bill to the vote. Those in support say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Secretary, may you please read the bill to the record?
The KwaZulu-Natal Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020.
Thank you. We are now coming towards the end. Honorable Premier, do you have any announcements? Thank you. Thank you once more, honorable members, and to our guests that were with us. We want to acknowledge, even if he has left, the former Deputy Speaker of this legislature for his continued presence and support of all our programs. We appreciate the guests, all the guests that were here, the heads of department and other government employees that are with us, and the media. The House is now adjourned sine die.
Order, Madam Speaker.